And I am.
Thank you for your patience. I did it upside down.
Alice? Alice, tell us your quote.
Okay, so I just read a book. It's not a new book, so some of you might have read it. It's called The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry, and it's by Gabriel Zevin, who also wrote Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. But
Right.
there's a great quote about short stories that I wanted to read to all of you. So this is the quote. Novels certainly have their charms, but the most elegant creation in the prose universe is a short story. Master the short story and you'll have mastered the world.
Wow. Great
So
quote.
I thought that was,
Sharing.
yeah. Isn't that a great quote?
It is.
I know. I was like so happy. And it's a great book for readers because it's about a man who owns a bookstore.
Oh, wow.
So if you haven't read it, it's a real quick read and it's very touching. And
We use Alice. Will you say the name one more time?
yes, The Storied Life
Oh,
of
I read that.
A.J.
AJ Frickey or something. Fabulous. I read that.
Yeah, it's an old book. It's 10 years. 10. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just read it and there was the quote about short stories. So I said, I've got to share it with the short story group.
My other short story group. That quote is found at the beginning.
Okay.
Well, it's actually, I think it's in a couple of places. I think it's towards the beginning and then towards the end. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
yeah.
We're going to start with our story. It's a true story.
Yes.
Abraham's return, a true story of Teshuvah. And Teshuvah means, forgiveness, returning. And ironically, I think this week, after a devastating weekend of news from Israel.
Yeah.
And I did think, talking about Teshuvah, today is the first day of Elul, and that's the month before Tishrei. This month, we're to prepare ourselves for the High Holy Days. And we can talk about this story. I watched, I was in DC with my kids and they don't have a TV, so on and so forth, but I watched, you can watch the funerals on YouTube, and they were all separate. And let's see if I can find the picture. In Israel, what happens when you don't really run an obituary in the newspaper? You put up you put up a sign, and it.
Where do you put up the sign?
I'll show you.
Oh,
You put it up all over the neighborhood.
Oh.
And I have a colleague whose mother died of cancer. And she was worried that here it is. At the bottom there, it says Carmel Gott.
Yes.
Alexander Lavender. Hirsch he's the first one right here. And you put that up in the neighborhood, and that's how people know that someone has died.
Ugh.
And Aiden Yerushalami. And it's a small country. So, I'm sure everyone in Hirsch Goldberg, Poland's neighborhood knows him and knows the family, and especially after, the whole, they had a very high profile. And I think that Almog Sarom, it's and someone said, we're talking about the hostages.
Okay.
Did they have one funeral? No, I mean, they wouldn't have a place, right? They wouldn't have a place that were big enough to hold it, and these are 6, individual people.
Personal stories.
Right.
Yes.
exactly. So, and when I saw this, I took a screenshot. And I always remember my girlfriend, she was the educator at Temple Sholem, Sarah Hanukkah, and her talking about, worrying about coming home from school and seeing one of these signs that her mother had died. So it's just something that's, in the Israeli, that's their culture. That's how they announce. That's somebody's died. Thank you. Anyway, so now we have this Abraham's return. Oh, I want to show you one more thing. I want to show you the picture. Which I think is really interesting. I mean, it's a beautiful picture. That you
Yeah.
for Barton's candy back in the day.
Right. I remember that tin. My mother.
Oh,
always
a
had
tin.
tin.
Real, oh, it must be beautiful.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Green and black.
yeah. I'll
Oh,
have to Google that in another. So, well, I'm gonna just put it out there and then we'll come back to some, some points, but how did you like the story?
I loved it.
I like it. I like it, right. Hi, Izzy, welcome everybody. It was almost, I don't wanna say unrealistic, but almost hard to believe. If she hadn't said that that was a true story, how would we have taken it in?
Why do you think it's hard to?
Same
believe?
way.
Because they return the picture, I mean.
After
there are
40 years.
people,
And the three siblings.
there are people who do that.
way.
There are, I mean, you find things and you wonder, and I mean, there are still, we have to believe that there are still some good people that
Yeah.
would return and not know.
Yeah,
Right, I think going through someone's estate, this happens. They put things away and then you find them. My grandfather served in World War II. He was head of the engineer corps. He went into Europe, he went to concentration camp in Germany. He had tons of pictures. No one had ever seen them. He put them in his attic and put them away. So when he died, my aunts, not my parents, brother, they went into the attic to look for things and they found them and they donated them to the Holocaust Museum because it just opened.
wow.
But they were all the GIs had taken them. They had hundreds of these, believe me, but it's not like they didn't need more. But the point is that they immediately, it wasn't like, oh, we want to keep these. This is history. No, it was like,
Hi,
this
Janice.
belongs to a community. It needs to go.
Izzy, real loud.
I didn't realize, I just did something like that kind of. I was going over, my aunt went to, my aunt camp closed in 1964 and had been going on for 48, and I was her niece and she didn't have any children, so I have all her stuff in the basement. And I brought it up 400 miles north to Mercer, Wisconsin, where it belongs. But in going through it, I found things that people had written when they were little girls about camp. And I decided I'd try and find these people. to give it to
wow.
them.
Wow.
And I found that there's a girl who belongs to Solel that I haven't seen in 64 years.
Wow.
From Whitefish Bay, Wisconsin. And I looked up in the Solel membership and I got her email address. And I met her last Monday for the first time in 64 years and gave her the 3 sheets of she and her 2 sisters. And she said at the bottom, the best part of going to camp was with my 2 sisters, one had died.
Oh,
Well, she cried when I gave it.
Oh,
And then she told me that
What
her
a story.
other girl I went with, that I haven't seen in 64 years, was coming in from Rhode Island to stay with her. Her name was Aunt Shapiro. Turns out my aunt was his mistress. I just found out.
oh,
Wow.
wow. I don't know if we should say too much.
No, it's
information.
okay. I'm so happy. She never married and I'm just very happy. Her grandfather, I found postcards from 1927, a big stack of them when he went around the world. He lived in Palestine and he went around the world. And they were color postcards of what the world looked like before World War II.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
had that
Amazing.
and I had his letters.
Yeah.
And I read them and read them. They were so fascinating. And I thought, and she was engaged to his son who was tied in World War II in Normandy.
Hmm.
So she was in business. She was a brilliant
Yeah.
businesswoman and worked for him. And so I said to Ann, I've got all these, she came for breakfast on Monday, and the two of them come for breakfast. It was unbelievable. I saw one of them first time 64 years and the other one. So I gave, because we were 16 when we saw each other. So I gave her all the postcards because they belonged to her because they
Yeah.
were written by her grandfather.
Yeah,
And then I said, what was their relationship? Because I'm not sure. She said, well, everybody knew he was her mistress, even his wife. I was so happy. I wondered. I'm so happy because she was wonderful. And
okay.
anyway,
Yay.
so that was that
How old
was
are
that.
these people?
They're 80 like me,
Oh.
but I hadn't seen them since I was 16.
Yeah,
okay.
And we had this bond because, so is that kind of teshuva? No,
No, no,
No,
but that
but
is
it-
returning,
it's returning.
because you didn't take it.
No, but they were hers.
Right,
And I wanted her to. have
right,
them.
right.
But the father probably had taken them to sell them and then somehow did not.
Maybe.
And they
Maybe.
just Jewish and they,
Yeah.
had it.
Was he
I-
Jewish?
I don't
Was the
know.
family Jewish?
Feeling he wasn't.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
have a
sure.
feeling it wasn't either.
Well, and was there any significance to the keychain with the scissors?
No.
No,
That
no.
just.
Except
to be
that was like a
my-
contract or whatever.
And he said that's all they got.
Right. Roberta, you had your hand up.
I was just gonna share a story so you can have hope for the youth. My daughter's friend went to her basement of a grandfather who passed away, and they found some art. They went and each piece was $25,000. So they sold it, and she took the money, put some in her kid's account, and gave some of the money to others. I thought that was fabulous.
It is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. I think, that they came to America, the three kids, and they talked with the family. My parents never thought they would see those prints again, but when they were returned, we believe it was for a special reason. After they had been hidden away for so long, we decided to give them the opportunity to live in vibrant Jewish communities. In the summer of 2018, dozens of Abraham, the first Jew prince, found new homes in synagogue, studies across the land, and there they remain, sentinels of faith, witnesses of teshuvah, pilgrims of hope.
Oh,
Yes.
the last sentence.
Were they tiny or big? It's a good.
That's how large were they? I imagine them to be this big.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because I see what comes through, the rabbi's office and, posters, and we get a lot of different art. We get a lot of, we also get, as people are downsizing, do you want this? Do you want that? And, as you can see, just looking in here, the library, everything is full. We're full. And then we merge and we're fuller. So, it just, that type of thing is really hard. And I think you all know me. I'm straightforward. So someone came in and they said, it's a beautiful Jewish art book. I said, I'm so sorry, we can't take it. And they said to me, it's really beautiful. And I said, okay, you keep it. Like, why? Why keeping it, And I think they were a little put off by that. But we just, I could have taken it and given it away, but nobody, coffee table books, I don't know. It's a hard
So
thing.
you don't want all my stuff?
No,
I just
that's not funny, Elaine.
I
I
just,
think it
I just moved, and I can tell you, I had to search for the places that would take we have huge art books. And the high school took them.
Oh, well, now I
That's
know.
amazing, because they want a shed book. I know, but, I mean,
They probably tear them apart with pictures.
they might, and they put them in the.
She doesn't wanna hear that.
And then they can't hear that. I don't hear it, but yeah, they do that all the time. She's right. But it's really, I had to search.
Yeah.
The library wouldn't
Yeah.
take it.
People come to me all the time and say, where can I, and we used to have Brandeis book sale.
Yeah.
And that was like my, every summer you go there, but now we got nothing. Sandy, I will unmute you. Go ahead. And
I
then-
like I like the story, and it just reminded me of something that happened to me in 1948. My sister, who had not dated much, was fixed up with a gentleman. She was taken to Grossingers, not the Grossingers in the Catskills, but the Grossingers in Florida. An aunt of mine took her there, and she met one of the sons, and I can't remember his first name, if it was Mark or what, but he was from Barton's Candy, the family that owned Barton's Candy.
Mhm.
And he really liked her. She was a lovely, very shy girl, 14 years older than me. I was just a kid. And they were dating, and he was very serious about her. But then she went to a Hapol Mizrahi meeting in Chicago, and she met this man who wasn't very attractive, who was very crippled. And once she met him, she forgot about everything else in her life. And she fell in love with him, and she married him. But I remember how we were all waiting for the engagement of her to the Barton's family heir.
No, I mean, it's, that's a fascinating story.
They were a nice family. They were a good family, as far as I know, because she went to New York and spent time with them.
I bet.
And
Jan,
by the way, my husband took a bad fall on Labor Day.
I was gonna ask you and wait till the end, how is David?
Well, he's broken the second vertebrae, and you know,
Oh,
at his age, it's serious.
Yeah,
So he's in the hospital, and we don't know a lot yet. But if you have a chance, please say a prayer for him. Thank you.
do you want him on the Misha Barach list?
I believe Rabbi Ike called me yesterday,
Okay,
and he was going to visit David today, which I really appreciated.
all right,
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
triple check that. That the rabbi would, forget. Janice says, your stuff is your stuff. You have enjoyed having, but understand the next generation doesn't want it. They are collecting their own stuff. And Janice, I would take it a step further. They are not collecting anything. They have, my kids, and I go there and help out, they have one laundry basket. I'm like, would it kill you to have two laundry baskets? And finally they got two. I think that was to satisfy me. But my mother has like 3 sets of china.
I couldn't get rid of.
So what did you do?
We donated to Goodwill. My daughter got stuck with one. My son got stuck with one, and the other we got rid of. We just tossed it. And these were china, gorgeous.
China, I know.
No one wants, you
I
lie,
have
no one
boxes.
wants it.
Yeah.
Right.
No one wants it.
Now,
And I
someone,
can't put it in the dishwasher.
If it's from England, get money.
What?
Only if it's from
No,
England.
I have some from England from my aunt, and it's not worth very much.
Well,
I
like $300.
Oh.
Yeah, for a whole.
I mean, it's not nothing.
Yeah, no, it's not nothing, but.
I would have taken
It's better than something.
Rather than throwing it away.
Yeah. They don't entertain the same. That's the big thing. They don't have, everything's casual because they all work and they don't have time and they have children and they're
Right.
family. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
that they have help. And if something breaks, they don't want to worry about it.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel badly about it.
yeah, I mean, my kids have pottery, so, and whenever I say, what about X, Y, that's not our aesthetic. That's what we tell, that's what you all, some of you know my daughter, that's what we tell us to, oh, she'll be here, they're coming for Yom Kippur. That's not our aesthetic, and I'm like,
My daughter.
all right, oh gosh, I have all the, Alice, Roberta Merle, Alice, oh.
Yeah, okay, a couple of things. One is when I read the story, I really liked the story. When I read it, I felt like I had heard this story before. Is it possible that either Rabbi Mafik or Rabbi Sarada had used it in a, I don't know, I felt like I had heard this story before.
I don't think so.
And- Okay, the other thing, this is kind of a funny story about you know, what you think is worth something when somebody passes away. So my aunt lived in Los Angeles and she worked for Columbia Records for many years. And they used to give her, you know, when a new record came out, they gave all the employees, you know, the first, I don't know, pressing or whatever. So my aunt had all these records. And when she passed away, my mother, my sister, and I went to Los Angeles to close up her apartment. And my mother said, well, these records, they have to be worth a lot of money. Aunt Ann got them, you know, directly from Columbia. She made, oh, and my husband, she made my husband drive over to Columbia Records and she made me go into Columbia Records and ask them. They didn't want them and they were worth nothing. But it was like, you know, you have in your mind that something is worth something and lots of times it isn't. But I mean, we went all over Los Angeles with these records and we finally sold them to like this used record place for like nothing. It was brought
Roberta?
back a lot of funny memories.
I think it's very individual, and I happen to not get attached to things from my family or others, but I emotionally get attached to everything. This was grandma's, this was so-and-so's. It's your family, it's history. My kids are not like that. So I had dishes from one grandma, glasses. What I did, because my children are like yours, didn't want anything. I broke off a piece from great grandmothers, grandmothers on every side, and I made 4-inch candle holders out of it from a ceramic. So it's small, it's something they use all the time. And you could point to each piece and say, this was my mom's grandma, this was my grandma. And it's history in 4 inches and it's useful, but anything else they won't take.
All right, I have Merle, Mary, Susan, and Elaine, and Sandy. Merle. Unmute.
The decision,
Go ahead.
I thought the decision to send the prints to rabbis all over the country was really a great idea. Because as far as family members, who knows, some people don't really even appreciate art. And sometimes when you have a piece of Judaica like this, you would send it to rabbis. And it reminded me of something that happened in my book club, that one of the members of our book club, and her name is Belinda Brock, and she's a member of our congregation, wrote a book called Gigi Mamala. And Gigi stands for great grandmother. And it was a story about the great grandma being in hospice, and it was written for preschoolers in a way that was very gentle. And there's a recipe for chicken soup at the end. So our book wanted to get this book out. So I chose people I knew from my family who belonged to like 11 different synagogues. And we sent a copy of this book to 11 different synagogues. And I talked to one of the synagogues in Los Angeles. I talked to a secretary there, and she said, oh, this is a beautiful book. And I sent it because it was very close to the time of my grandson's bar mitzvah. And I said, we would like to donate this book in honor of my grandson. And she said, thank you so much. It's a beautiful book. We'll add it to the library. But I thought it's so natural to want to send Judaica to a synagogue. So that's what we did with the book. And anyway, it might be in our synagogue library. It's called Gigi and Mamala. It's a beautiful book for preschoolers. And it's a difficult subject to talk about because it's about a very sick grandma in hospice. But it's a beautiful book. So I just wanted to tell you about it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mary.
Comment about records.
Yes.
So my son-in-law collects records. And he bought a record player.
Yeah.
And they're going for a fortune now. So a lot of this is timing, is when, if you have something that it now, he'll spend $100, $75 on a record,
Yeah.
okay? Not every, now,
You should have told me this a couple weeks ago.
I mean, sometimes he spends $20, but I mean,
Yeah.
people collect them now. It's like a big thing of that generation of the
My
people in
grandchildren.
their forties. And record stores have been cropping up and used record stores across the country.
Really?
And they are now valuable, more
Yeah.
valuable, not,
Yeah.
not every one of them, obviously, but, and there's also have what condition they're in, whatever. But yeah, there are people now collecting them.
Yeah.
So it's all a matter of timing.
I agree, it's happenstance. Susan. Susan, go, oh wait, I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead. Susan Wells.
Did you say me, Vanessa?
No, because they.
Okay, so I am also very emotionally attached to things that belonged to my ancestors, to my grandmother, to my parents, whatever. And I have china dishes that were grandmother's from her.
Yep.
And there's 10 dishes left, and some of them are a little bit chipped. And the funny thing is, I have one grandchild, my oldest granddaughter. She wants all this stuff, but she has put it. So I have all this stuff, because saving it for my granddaughter who hasn't got any place to put it, but she wants it. And I have 3 sets of china. Nobody wants it.
Yep.
They don't entertain that way anymore. It's amazing. I have silverware that was my mother's, and nobody wants it. So, and it's like, I feel like I'm running a storehouse. I'm saving everything for everybody.
Right.
And I don't know what to do with half this stuff.
I know.
And my mother, I just will tell you one thing, my mother collected dinner bells.
Yeah, I think we're getting away from the store.
Yes, we do need to.
Yeah, I will say that I agree. We're getting away from the story, but I did like the story. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was the question at the end of the story, where they asked, are we responsible for the sins of our fathers?
Yeah.
And
I want to get to that.
that's an interesting question that I think we ought to explore.
Did he take them and then just put them in the ad? Did he take them with the intention of selling them? Did he take them with the intention of just keeping them?
No,
I
keeping
mean,
them
no,
away from other
but
people.
then he decided that they were worth nothing at the time. And now maybe and the children just, we're getting way away from the
Right.
story.
But I think, and look, I could be wrong, that he took them. This was the time when, remember when it cost a lot of money to call Europe or call Israel?
Yes.
Make phone calls like
Right.
that. Sending a letter took 2 weeks and you sent those
Yes.
little airgrams.
Right.
I mean, today you would have called them and said, hey, buddy, where are my pictures? But, and then look, and maybe Zoe Klein's parents forgot about it. You give something to someone and they're like, you forget about it. Like, oh, here's this. So all of those things are, and I do want to get back to the parents thing, but Sandy has her hand up. Go ahead, Sandy. I'll unmute you.
I also have dishes that were from my grandmother, who I never knew. She passed before I was born, but I've handed them down. Only one of my 3 daughters would take them. And I see that what she does is she, like all the young women, uses these beautiful paper plates. But when she puts out the dessert or she puts out some relishes before with the appetizers, she always takes one plate and she puts out, maybe pickles and olives and things on it. And then for the dessert, she'll also use just 1 or 2 plates. So I do see them on her table. And I know she loves them. And that's all we can expect from the kids, that they do treasure them. They're not throwing them out. They do treasure them.
Nice, nice. Judy.
I would like to respond, are we responsible for our parents' wrongs? I think that when we find out, this is my personal feeling, it doesn't necessarily mean it's what it is. I think if I were to find out that my parent did something that was wrong, if neither of them are alive, so I think you have to say to yourself, is this what my parent would have really wanted? Because my parents weren't me. And my mother was more me. My father did a lot of things that weren't good. If I had a chance to correct anything my mother did, I would do that. My father felt differently, and I don't know how, if it was his intent or the way he wanted it. I don't think I would follow up on my father's wrongs, but I would on my mother.
Interesting. Joyce and then Mary.
Well, I think this man who did take the Abraham pictures did have ill intent. And I think he sold some of them or got rid of some of them because not all
Like 3 or 4.
100 were there.
There were like 90.
Some were missing. I mean,
No,
no, I
87 prints were left.
I think
Yeah.
he got rid of some somehow, and it's my belief that he did sell some, and he had nefarious intent.
Good
when
word.
he took them.
SAT word, nefarious.
If I played Scrabble. But I think it.
Yeah,
they
many letters.
Anyhow, and I believe, Judy, I disagree with you. If it was either parent, if I knew that they had done something wrong, and if I had the opportunity, I think I would do anything in my power to correct that. But that's me.
Wait.
I take after my mother in terms of trying to be
Yeah,
a do-gooder,
yeah.
where my father might have been a little.
Yeah.
"Hmm,
Mary, then Izzy,
Okay.
then Ellen.
So we just took December.
My white jacket.
Yes.
And we went to Budapest and we went to, and we also went to Berlin. In Budapest, there is not an admission fully of what they did to the Jews.
Interesting.
They do not want to admit it fully. In fact, they do not have a Jewish museum there
Mhm.
or a Jewish history museum because the community would like it.
People are gonna come
But-
back.
but-
it's
well,
gonna take over.
Well,
Yeah.
they will not do it unless
Yeah.
there's a full admission to work with the government. The government would like to do something, but it's not a full
No.
admission, so that,
Yeah.
that's what Urban, who's there now, is even worse. We went to Berlin. There is such, it is an obligation, and we stay in battle plots where they burn, in front of the university, where they burn the books. And there's a, hole in the ground with bookshelves. We stayed at a hotel right there. I'm talking about 6 in.the morning. There are people that come to see it. There's school groups, there are elderly people, there are all these people that are there, and they're there to sundown. There's
Yeah.
always a group. And we went to a neighborhood where Jews used to live. Einstein lived in that neighborhood. And when you drive down the street, you know how if you drive down the street, they have, they have signs, dead end or whatever it is, or speed limits on every single street in that neighborhood.
There's a two
One of them
winter.
laws that were passed to, there's a picture on one side, on the other side, there is the law that was passed to disenfranchise, take away the lives, whatever, just, and the very last one is a black, and on the other side is the final extinction law.
Wow.
But they have a cat. They had to turn in all their cats because they couldn't have any wild cats running around when they
Yeah.
took out the Jews. But they have such an admission of what they did And they're trying to carry down generations. And on a personal side, my family, I grew up in the South. My family, back when, had slaves. There's no question about it. I know it. It's my hair history. And I never much thought about it until a friend of mine's daughter, they're related to Jefferson, and she wrote she's a writer, and she wrote for the New York Times, a thing about her parents and how they approached it and how she is approaching it because she feels she must give back something. So she spent a year writing at Monticello with 3 or 4 Black women who were descendants just like she was. And they were sharing their experiences and their thoughts but that is,
That's a great.
but I never thought about feeling the one way or the other.
I
And
know.
I know I was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's just Southern history,
Yeah.
This is
It is Southern
But-
history, but
justification of
Yeah.
wanting to do something
yeah,
to make right what your ancestors
Yeah.
did.
powerful. I have Izzy, Ellen, and then Elaine.
So just extrapolating that,
Real
what
loud.
happens if, just in a
And
broader
reverse.
philosophical sense, that your father was a criminal and robbed a bank or killed somebody? Are you responsible for the descendants taking care of them or doing something like that? I mean, if you take it, because are you responsible for your parents' sins? I don't think so personally. If you want to, but I just think that, there's so many sins that
Yeah.
parents can do
Yeah.
in all different levels. So
Yeah.
how can you make a?
But I'm just gonna, what if the
so many
parents
questions.
robbed a bank and gave you the money?
Then you're responsible.
Well, it depends the kind of person you are, like your father or whoever did it, you're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
So it depends on the person. I mean, it
Yeah.
really depends on the person. I don't know that there's a rule.
I don't think
There
you
is.
take the money.
Right.
I mean,
So, all right,
it's just a broader philosophy.
it's very broad and we're gonna get to, but Ellen, Susan said, please speak louder so that they can hear. Can you hear me, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, let's see if you can hear me. I think I was just gonna say
Oh,
that,
That's not it. It's the mics. It's those black mics.
so it's not turning on our mics louder?
I don't think that'll help. I mean, you could.
I can hear you, Ellen,
Oh,
but
good. Okay.
I couldn't hear Izzy and I couldn't hear Elaine.
Oh, I think when we're on virtual, it's harder to hear the people in the room than the other way
Right.
around.
Go ahead.
Right.
Nothing huge. I think that it doesn't really matter. I mean, I know all these stories have, and I like this one better than most of them. They have a point to tell. And it doesn't really matter whether one, we would do it for both parents or one parent or not at all. I think the real takeaway is the fact that it did happen in the story and that it makes you feel that people, that there's hope, that there's the power in the world to be good. And God knows we need that belief in the world we're living in right now.
Yes, we
Mm.
do indeed. Elaine, real
Okay,
loud.
I think if these pictures were bothering the children in the attic, then you have, for yourself, you have an obligation to get rid of them, to give them back, to make yourself feel better. There's no right or wrong. I think if you felt that they were taken wrongly and you can do it, you do it. A lot of times people just throw things away. So I think it depends on your gut. Now, in this case, it had a very happy ending. They came, they embraced, they gave. Okay, I don't know realistically if that would really happen. Okay, because if you're gonna make the trip from Europe to here, blah, blah, blah. But it depends on how righteous the children interpret their lives, not what your parents were. It's how you want to live your life. And that makes the difference. I mean, some people are good people, but they don't care what happened. Some people want to live in the past. So, and they want to right all the wrongs. So it just depends on how you feel. And I mean, the story made us feel good.
Yeah. Roberta, then Terry. Roberta, go ahead.
And to expand. I'm sorry, I don't know everyone's name. I think it's how you define wrongs. I think that's important. I think there's some very obvious wrongs and there's gray, but it's really how they individually define it. Only example I could think of is in today's world, the parents of the children, it's in reverse, who gun violence. I really hold the parents responsible for the child's violence. But in pertaining to this story, I think we need to remember to define what, and I think our definition of wrongs of our parents are very interpretable.
So, before Terry speaks, we were just talking about this in the office and it just came up this week. There is a kid, I think on the North Shore, who was known to drive fast because he had an those insurance cameras you can put in your
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
He drove fast on 99, it was a he. He hit a kid on the bike. The kid died, and they're charging the parents.
Who bought the insurance camera,
Yep.
okay? And in my opinion, they're liable because they bought it.
Looks like the.
Because they knew about it. They knew he
And
was.
Okay.
Absolutely, he was
that is
breaking the law,
being liable for your,
intentional.
than your parents. That is a totally different
Oh, that is
responsibility.
Okay.
Right.
It's a
It's an
totally,
interesting.
it's a totally different responsibility.
Yeah.
You as a child do not have control over your parent, but as a parent, you should have control over your child.
All right.
Look at the July 4th.
Yeah, July
Yeah.
4th guy,
He
yeah,
just was in jail for like 2 months and got out.
right.
Who?
Oh, no.
No,
Oh,
no.
the dad?
The
Oh,
dad.
the
The
dad.
dad, well, the
Okay.
dad, yeah,
It's terrible.
yeah.
Yeah, but then in
My
another
son
state,
was gonna
they
represent him.
really, but
And then his kids said, no, we might go back to the North Shore.
Exactly, we don't wanna. Terry,
So just to
very loud.
put a fine point on your last comment, you don't have complete control of your children, but when it comes to
You have knowledge.
a gun or buying them a camera where you know that something horrible could happen, or being aware that they possess it and not doing anything about it, then I think
Absolutely.
then you are responsible. But
Yes.
on a completely different note, I was just kind of fascinated by the piece that talked about artists and rabbis.
Oh.
So I thought that was very interesting. And when she said, I see the work of an artist and the work of a rabbi is very similar. We are both taking delicate fibers and trying to weave them into something meaningful and lasting. I just thought that was really beautiful.
It is
And it's a
beautiful.
very interesting thing to think about. And my son's a rabbi, so it really made me think about it a lot.
Who's your son?
He's a rabbi in Portland, Oregon,
Oh.
at a Reconstructionist synagogue. So, yeah, I thought that was a very interesting part that she pointed out, and how she sat and watched her father do his art. And he talked about creation and death, and somehow from that, it seemed totally natural for her that she become a rabbi rather than an artist.
Yeah.
I loved how they.
All right, I have Alice and Merle.
Yeah, Terry, to add to what you just said, it's in that same sentence on the bottom of 208 to 209. And she said, well, as he worked, he would talk about creation and destruction, life and death, the beauty of blank space, and the human impulse to fill it. And to me, that's the part that connects art and religion, because I feel that religion, I mean, the way we as Jews see it is what? It's a series of stories, right, from the Torah that explain, how to live, how not to live, maybe, the beauty, the destruction, creation and destruction. And then that's what artists do. I mean, they interpret, you know, what they see, whether it's a visual artist or it's an author, a poet, a musician. They're filling the space that's out there. So yeah, I agree with you, Terry. I thought that was really a beautiful, beautiful statement.
Merle.
I was very interested in the question about if you were a rabbi, what would you say in a sermon about the print and its story? And because it was the Abraham story, it's something that's talked about every year. And at our synagogue,
At the
one-
high holidays.
Yes.
If you
Right.
come, you know, to Torah Study Weekly, I don't mean to pick on you, Marla, you know, we do get to the other stories, but the majority of us do get that story.
we do remember this story above all other stories because it's such a controversial topic. But I remember that one of the rabbis gave a sermon about a painting done by a modern artist. And I think this painting might be in the office at the synagogue. And it was such an amazing,
Rabbi Moffick's office.
right, Rabbi Moffick. And he talked about the artist and how this artist took modern day scenes in Israel and painted them in a photographic style. You could have sworn it was a photograph. And each painting was a modern day version of a Bible story. And I thought that was one of the most memorable services I've ever been to at our synagogue, where I can still see the paintings in my head about how these stories are still relevant today, whatever the story is from the Bible. They're so relevant today. So I thought it was really wonderful that they did send this print to rabbis all over the country. But do you know the name of the painting, Vanessa, by any chance? I don't remember.
I'm gonna text Rabbi Moffick.
Because it was so fascinating to see how these people were wearing jeans and t-shirts. They were just modern Israelis, but there was something in their poses, and the artist had posed them that represented a story from the Bible, and many, many different stories he'd done.
First of all, it's giant. And these pictures, and if he doesn't get back to me, I'll put it in, you know, what we're doing next in a link to his work, because it is absolutely fascinating. And what I was gonna say is that when you talk to people about art and they look at it, and you can go in there and I can picture it in my head, and hopefully he's gonna get back to me. I mean, it's very striking, and some people love it, some people don't. I don't know how I wouldn't, and it's giant. It's bigger than the TV. It's really giant. And when rabbis give sermons, you know, when we get back into the car to go home, our family is like, what'd you think? You know, they don't, what'd you think? What'd you think? And everybody takes away a different piece. And it's absolutely fascinating. And you know, I'm sure the rabbis would tell you this as well. Should people not like something they hear, we hear about that very quick. Very quick. Well, but the other thing, and Rabbi Serrata said this to me, you know, the high holidays, I really think for all of us, because we see all of you and you say, thank you, and everything's going so well. And Rabbi Serrata said to me, you know, you have to remember to stay humble, because, you know, whether people mean it or not, you know, oh, great sermon, great sermon, great sermon. So that has always stuck with me, that he said that. And you know, that tells you a little bit about him, but you know, something to think about at the high holy days. Let's see here. What was the other?
Can I just say that the work of this artist, if you go online, is stunning.
It's absolute what's his name?
James Grashow. You should look at his art. It's just stunning.
James Grashow.
G-R-A.
The woodcut.
How do you spell it?
Grashow.
Oh, here.
And he's still
Wow.
alive. He's still alive. He's active at the Pratt Institute, and his work is beautiful.
Here we go. There's some of his work.
James what? Grashow.
It's interesting.
Mhm.
They didn't try to sell the pictures. that they gave away the picture.
Yeah.
That says something too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
because
Wow.
They, you know, everyone thinks, oh, this is worth something.
Right.
And they initially go to someone to see that, you know, what it's worth.
Yeah. He also did this corrugated work,
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
really, it's just
This
beautiful.
fountain,
Yeah.
Fountain.
Mm.
just fabulous.
Right, let's see.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, yes.
That looks like Zeus probably.
Yeah.
There's also some
Okay.
pictures when you go on his site where his children are participating in helping him carry things around. So his kids are active in his art. You can tell
Yeah,
that the woman who wrote this is involved with her father.
yeah,
Wow, look at the card.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really,
It's
it's
amazing.
amazing. It's amazing.
It takes a long time
Yeah.
to do that.
Vanessa, can I follow up on?
Yes,
what
yes,
you said?
please, Mary, go
Okay.
ahead.
So I read a Holocaust novel recently. I can't remember the name of it. I never remember the name of it.
Come on.
But
What was it
But
about?
it was, okay, so it's about, like, it starts with the Jewish, Holocaust Jewish community in Greece. And there's a little boy who doesn't realize what he's doing, but he's told by the Nazis, and he believes them, that he should tell the Jews, he's
Oh,
a
the
Jew.
little boy who can't lie.
Yes, the little boy who can't
I
lie.
read it.
Yes, so the point is that he told him to get the community to get on the train and go
Yeah.
and get wiped out, okay? He never forgave himself, but as a child, he went to visit his grandparents' grave, and his father cleaned up the grave or whatever, and he said the greatest thing about forgiveness is not about doing something that everybody sees, but doing something that's private. That you do because it's your own obligation within yourself that you do. So when he grew up, he was very, very concerned about what he had done. He couldn't forgive himself. So he spent his life, every Sabbath, he lived in LA, he was a film director, very wealthy, and he would go but he would clean graves. Of Jewish graves, and then he gave money back to this community for years. They got wiped out. Whoever was left, he sent them checks all the time.
Wow.
But he never admitted it. He did it as a private form of forgiveness for himself, that it was more important. And I think sometimes what you were saying is that you do it for yourself, and you do it not to get accolades for it, but to do it because you think it's right. Or trying to come to
Or
terms with your own
also to
guilt.
forgive yourself of your crimes or your
Absolving yourself.
trespasses.
Exactly.
I think people do all sorts of things to do, it. And nowadays, money is the easiest thing to give, okay? So we do that to get rid of our guilt or our shame, or however you wanna say it.
Well, there are amazing pictures of him with his art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
So thank you for pointing
They're
that out.
very large pieces.
Yeah, they're large,
pieces.
yeah.
They're very large.
We read a book, a Holocaust book, and I'll tell you the name of it, yada, yada. All the Broken Places by John Boyne. And
Oh, I
it's
love
a
that.
sequel
Oh,
to
yeah.
Striped Pajamas. So
Okay.
he's not Jewish, it's all fiction, but, and people have a lot of problems with the Striped Pajamas book as putting that into the curriculum, for young kids when you could, be reading, I don't know, Elie Wiesel. But it has such a twist in it, of this woman who had tricked her brother into go seeing the boy in the striped pajamas because they lived right next to the concentration camp, and then he was killed. And so what she does and how she works her guilt or tshuva, it's a very well written book. And I don't exactly know what the moral of the story is, but she tries to commit tshuva all the way, to the end of her life.
All the broken places, it's called.
All the Broken Places by John Boyne, Boyne.
Did we read that?
Yes, we read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
All right, now you're probably saying to me, okay, this is the last story in this book, what are we reading? 7 Good Years, a memoir by Edgar Carrot. And he is, here we go. He's an Israeli author. And I'm gonna send it, but it's ETGAR Carrot, KERET. And he is a little, these are memoirs. I think it's really good. And I think it'll give us a lot more to talk about. Ellen,
Okay, am I muted or can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I have a public service announcement. It has nothing, are we done with the class? Because I didn't want to interrupt later.
Very nice of you. Let me stop this. Yes.
Okay, as I think all of you know, and it's really only those of us that are on virtual can't walk through the vestibule. But in the vestibule, there are postcards. I have been incapacitated, as most of you know. I had a shoulder replacement, and Vanessa, or if anybody that's at the class can do me a favor and count the number of packets left and let me know, I would really appreciate it.
I'll do that.
They are.
We have some in the office.
Okay, there are more in the office, more packets? Oh,
Yeah.
well, then please do that, because I didn't know that. I want to know how many there are total.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's so inclined, please come and take them from the vestibule, just sign them out. They are postcards to Florida, Texas, and there may be a third state, urging people to vote. It's a nonpartisan message, but it's to register Democratic voters. It really helps to get the vote out, and we've committed to RAC, and I think it's Common Cause that does this. It's doing this nationally, and we have a goal of 6,000 postcards that we're coming close to. So,
and I have some postcard stamps in my room that Rabbi Serrata bought. So if you want the stamps, we have them, or you can buy the stamps.
yes, you can buy the stamps, but if you know people that will do it but can't afford to buy the stamps, we have other people that will buy the stamps. So just to spread the word and come and get as many postcards as you can possibly take. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen, and I'll get back to you on how many we have.
Almost, what's a,
Oh, no, I can't close it.
oh,
Why are we giving up
Well,
no one liked it?
yeah, I mean, it's nice. It's just a little, I don't want to say juvenile, but.
Yeah.
What about getting a book by all different authors like we had before?
I'll look for that.
Because that was so good.
That was so great.
was
It's hard to find that. There might be a Yiddish one. But Edgar Carrot, this book isn't long, so, it's not gonna be like,
It's not like that.
it's not like this, and I'll.
Too
choose
The
one.
one that I
Yes.
recommended, I read the first book.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
But
but
it ended so abruptly.
Nathan
So-
Englander's book.
Yes.
So Nathan Englander has a book, for the relief of unbearable urges, and it's a little racier. But that also has a lot of great, and in fact, I read it in my evening one, and the story that, speaks to me is what we're talking about when we talk about Anne Frank.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
a story about, who would hide you, and these couples, and it's a
Did
great
you
story.
read the first story though about the couples? Because it ended so abruptly. I would
I
like
know.
to ask you about that. I couldn't figure out.
Right, well,
why it
that's
ended
the
like that.
story I'm talking, isn't that the one we talk
Yes,
about?
yes.
Mhm. Well, I think it's meant to, and it's meant, yeah, he's, both of them are very edgy writers. So, wait a minute, Roberta, are you talking to us? I muted you.
just want to know, who was the author again, Nathan?
Englander.
Yeah.
Englander. Okay, thank you.
Right. So just to, this week, Joel Brown will be here. We have a 12:30, light lunch. We'll still have lox and bagels. I got tuna fish. And, Joel Brown is talking about how we view the news, and I said to him, please, can you talk about Israel? Because many of us saw, again, this weekend was crucially so hard and devastating, but when people said, these kids, and for the most part they were kids, died, they were executed, they didn't die. So, we have to be very vigilant as we read the news, and
Their word choice.
pardon?
They have to be very cognizant of word choice.
Yeah.
And sentence.
Agreed. So, 12:30, he'll speak at 1.
Oh, it's not the usual.
It's not, because it's the first day of lead learning. It'll be a little crazy. No, it's at 12:30 and then 1 to 2.
Okay, and what's, oh, yeah, I read about it.
Okay, good.
I read it.
Yes, I put it, it's on my signature. It's not if I didn't mention. And Sandy, we're sending Rifuah Shlema to David. It's good to see everybody, and, so the next one will be, the 18th. It'll still be before Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is late.
October.
It's October.
And what will the, tell us what the book will be. So-
Edgar Carrot,
Oh, it did.
7 Good Years, but I'll
7 Good
email it this afternoon.
Yeah.
I'll put that on my.
Can you get it on
Well, is
Amazon?
there one story in particular that will be reading?
No,
You're,
We'll read through the book,
Oh, the whole book?
Yeah.
Oh,
because I don't think it's that long, and it's it's like a memoir.
So that'll be one meeting of one? book?
No,
No.
Okay,
I have to see how many,
can you get it on Amazon?
I just found it on Libby.
Oh.
If anybody wants to do it.
Okay.
The audiobook was available,
Oh.
but the other is
Okay.
a 2-week wait.
Okay,
So maybe I'll
Right.
listen until I.
it's $9 on Amazon.
Okay.
All right, good to see everybody, and, if you have any questions, come see me, and, be well, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.